They admitted me for something that should have been routine. A simple appendectomy, they said. In and out within 48 hours. But hospitals always had this scent. Sterile, yet haunted by sickness and something older. Something deeper. Maybe it's the smell of fear that never fully leaves the walls. I was placed in room 313, a number I wish I had paid more attention to. It was a quiet corner room on the 3rd floor of Willow Creek General, a half-century-old facility tucked away in a forgotten Pennsylvania town. The kind of hospital that time had outgrown but necessity kept alive. From the moment they wheeled me in, I felt unwelcome. It wasn't the staff. They were kind enough. But the atmosphere in the room was thick, like the air was holding its breath. There was a subtle buzz, like static beneath the silence. Even the fluorescent lights flickered more often than they should have. I tried to brush it off. After all, it was just a couple nights, right? That first night, just past midnight, I awoke, not from pain, but from silence. A suffocating, unnatural silence. Then came the sound of soft footsteps outside my door. I assumed it was the nurse making rounds. She walked in without turning on the lights. She was tall, wore an old-fashioned white uniform and cap, and didn't say a word. I tried to sit up, but a coldness clamped down on my chest. She came to my side, checked my IV bag, and placed her hand on my forehead. Her hand was freezing. "Ma'am," I whispered. No response. She turned and walked out. I pressed the call button. A few minutes later, a different nurse entered. This one younger, confused. "No one's been in here," she said. "Are you sure it wasn't a dream?" I wasn't, but I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next day, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe I was hallucinating from the anesthesia or pain meds. But later that afternoon, the patient in the next room, an old man, was being moved out. As they wheeled him past, he turned to me and said, "Don't let her touch you again." "What?" "The nurse in white. Room 313's hers. Always has been." I froze. One of the orderlies quickly hushed him. "He's confused," they muttered. But I saw the look in the old man's eyes. He wasn't confused. He was terrified. Later that night, I heard the same orderly whispering to another. That guy said the same thing the last 2 patients said. "Damn room should be closed off." I wasn't supposed to hear that. The second night, it happened again. I checked the clock. 3:13 a.m. Of course it was. The same sound of shoes clicking against linoleum. She stood in the doorway longer this time, almost as if she was waiting. I tried to reach for my phone to record it, but I couldn't move. It was like my body was paralyzed. She walked toward me again, her eyes. Black. Not dark. Black. No pupils, no whites, just voids. This time she spoke. "You were supposed to die," she whispered, in a voice that sounded like 2 people talking at once. I don't remember screaming. I just remember waking up to 3 nurses trying to calm me down. They said I had a nightmare, that I was thrashing so hard I knocked over the heart monitor. But when I looked at the floor, I saw wet footprints. The next morning, I asked a nurse, Carmen, the only one who seemed to believe me, about room 313. She grew quiet. After her shift, she found me in the cafeteria. "I'm not supposed to tell you this," she said, "but there was a nurse named Eliza Griggs, back in the 60s, worked this floor. One night, she gave the wrong medication to a child, killed him. She was so racked with guilt, she overdosed in room 313, right where your bed is." I asked if there were any records. She nodded nervously. That night, we sneaked into the basement, where old files were stored in rusting cabinets. We found Eliza's personnel file and a report of her death. Found at 3:13 a.m., eyes open. Expression, peaceful. Peaceful my ass. The report had a photograph. It was grainy, but it was her. The nurse I'd seen in my room, right down to the uniform. The third night, I refused pain meds. I wanted to be fully alert. At 3:13 a.m., my room turned icy again. I sat up, ready, heart pounding. She didn't walk in this time. She was already there, standing at the foot of my bed. "You stole a death," she hissed. "What do you mean?" "Your time was scheduled. The boy was meant to take your place." My monitor flatlined. Nurses rushed in, but not before she reached out and ran her nails down my chest. When I came to, I was intubated. The doctor told me I had gone into sudden cardiac arrest. No warning signs. They found 3 long scratches across my torso. No explanation. That morning, I dreamt of a boy. About 8 years old. Pale. Eyes full of sorrow. He didn't speak, but he held out his hand like he wanted to show me something. In the dream, we were in room 313, but it was older. The walls had wallpaper, the lights dimmer. He pointed to the door, and there she was again. Eliza. Only this time she was crying. "I didn't mean to," she said. "I just wanted to help." Then she looked at me. "But you're not supposed to be here." I woke up drenched in sweat. My chart had a note. Patient experienced sleep paralysis. No medications given. I begged them to discharge me. The doctor resisted, said I wasn't stable. But I knew if I spent another night there, I wouldn't be leaving at all. Carmen pulled strings, got the papers rushed. I was released at 7 p.m. As they wheeled me out, I looked up at the 3rd floor. There she was, staring from the window of room 313. And for a moment, I swear to God, I saw myself standing beside her, pale, lifeless, eyes black. Then it was gone. It's been 6 years, but I still wake up at 3:13 a.m. sometimes. Once I found a nurse's cap on my nightstand. Another time my 4th scar reopened, though I hadn't touched it in years. And sometimes, just sometimes, I feel a cold hand on my forehead when I'm sleeping. I've moved 3 times, different cities, different lives, but she finds me, not every night, but enough to remind me I never truly left. I've kept in touch with Carmen. She doesn't work there anymore. She told me a new patient was placed in 313 last month. Young guy, appendectomy. He died at 3:13 a.m. They said it was cardiac arrest, no prior issues. His family reported he'd seen a nurse in white. They closed room 313 after that. But Carmen said they still hear footsteps. And sometimes monitors start beeping at exactly 3:13 a.m. And once, they found a child stuffed bear in the corner of the room. There were scratch marks on it. Maybe you think I'm crazy. Maybe you think it was trauma, anesthesia, meds, a stress dream. I wish I could agree. But I have the scratches. I have the file on Eliza Griggs. I have the time-stamped hospital reports. I survived room 313. But not everyone does. If you're ever admitted, check your room number. If it's 313, get out. Because sometimes, death doesn't like to be cheated. And Eliza, she's always waiting. I've worked the ER for over 20 years. Seen everything from gunshot wounds to the aftermath of hurricanes. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what happened in March 2017. Back then, I was stationed at St. Adrian's Memorial Hospital, a rundown facility on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. We were underfunded, understaffed, and overloaded. Still, I loved the rush, the chaos, the rawness of it all. But the night it all began, it was dead quiet. No ambulances, no walk-ins, just an eerie stillness that made every beep of the EKG feel like a gunshot. Then I smelled it. Ether. Strong. Old school. No one used ether anymore, not since the 70s. But there it was, hanging in the air like a memory no one invited. And suddenly, it felt like the hospital had slipped back in time, like I was standing in someone else's version of this place. It was 2:47 a.m. when I first saw him. He stood at the end of the corridor near Trauma Bay 2. Tall, balding, a faded white coat stained at the sleeves, with blood. Not fresh, old, brown and crusted. I thought he was a homeless guy who wandered in. Happens more often than you'd think. "Sir," I called, "you need to leave. This area is restricted." He didn't move, didn't blink. He just turned and walked straight through the closed double doors without touching them. I stood frozen. My body knew before my mind did. He wasn't human. I checked the security footage later. Nothing. The camera glitched at exactly 2:47 a.m., static for 37 seconds. When the feed returned, the hallway was empty again. I kept what I called a whisper log. Every time I heard something strange, voices in empty rooms, patients talking to people who weren't there, I wrote it down. March 11th. Patient in room 7 whispered, "He's back." The old doctor, he wants the scalpel. March 15th. ICU nurse quit. Said someone kept calling her name over the intercom. The system was off. March 19th. Woke up during a nap to someone breathing in my ear. There was a pattern, a presence, and it always circled back to Trauma Bay 2. Sometimes I'd find surgical trays out of place, scalpel blades that didn't belong to our inventory, patients coded with no clear cause. Nurses swore they saw someone with old-fashioned surgical glasses peering through the door window. I started digging. Archives, old medical logs. One name kept showing up, Dr. Emery Ashcroft, a brilliant trauma surgeon from the 1940s, obsessive, cold. Rumored to have conducted experimental procedures on dying patients without consent. He was fired after a whistleblower revealed he had sewn a conscious patient shut, alive, claiming he wouldn't die, so I helped him sleep. He hung himself in the hospital's old surgical wing in 1952, which of course was now Trauma Bay 2. Other staff began avoiding the bay. They'd make excuses, bad lighting, faulty wiring. But the truth was in their eyes. They were afraid. One janitor, an old Vietnam vet named Lester, told me, "I saw him once, Doc. Back in '91. Same coat, same blood. He told me to prep the OR." I didn't clean that wing for years. March 27th. A flatlined patient's monitor began to spike wildly. No one had touched it. The room was empty. But the vitals came back. BP, 120/80. Pulse, 72. I ran in. The bed was empty. Then the monitor printed a message instead of vitals. Scalpel ready. I nearly quit that night. Later, I checked the device logs. The internal clock had reset to 1952. I didn't even know that was possible. I don't know when he attached himself to me. Maybe when I opened the sealed drawer of Dr. Ashcroft's original surgical tools. Maybe when I called his name in the mirror out of dumb curiosity. But I saw him in my house, in my bathroom mirror, just for a second. That blood-stained coat. My daughter cried one night, saying, "There's a man in my closet. He said you work with him." That was when I knew. He wasn't tied to the hospital anymore. He was tied to me. My dog refused to go upstairs. My wife began sleep-talking in a low, raspy voice. "We need more patients. The operation must continue." I went back. I couldn't let him roam free. I entered Trauma Bay 2, carrying the surgical tools I'd taken from storage, laid them on the tray. I said aloud, "Dr. Ashcroft, let's finish this." For the next 43 minutes, I stood in total darkness. Lights dead, temperature below freezing. I heard whispers, screams, the sound of sawing, cutting. He made me watch. There were others in the shadows, half-formed patients, ghosts in hospital gowns. One reached for me. Her eyes were sewn shut, and when it ended, every tool was gone, except the scalpel, still warm. The hospital burned down in 2019, electrical fire. No survivors on the overnight staff. But I survived. I wasn't working that night. Now I teach medicine. But I never enter an ER, ever. And every so often, when the room is quiet and the clock strikes 2:47 a.m., I smell ether. And I know. He's checking in. I keep the scalpel in a locked box. It still bleeds, not constantly, just once in a while, a single drop. Always at 2:47 a.m. I've tried disposing of it, buried it, burned it, dropped it into the ocean. And yet, every time I wake up, it's on my nightstand. I tried telling my story to a journalist once. She laughed, until her phone recorded a voice during our interview that wasn't ours. A male voice, calm, precise. Scalpel ready. She never published the story. She also never stopped screaming. They found her 3 weeks later, tongue removed, incisions perfectly stitched, by someone meticulous. I know he's not done. I don't think he ever will be. So if you ever smell ether in a hospital late at night, or see a man in a blood-stained white coat just watching you, run. Because some doctors never leave their post, even in death.